Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. I think we have the wrong music queued up there. I should be thinking Olympics, Mike Lubie Lubitz. Do you have Olympic fever yet on the morning briefing? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the morning briefing. Jeff DeForest. We got Mike Lubie Lubitz, Mr. Olympics. I don't know that there is a deeper historian on the Olympics than Mike Lubie Lubitz. So what would be your standout Olympic memory, Lubie? Is there anything that just immediately comes into focus? You can picture it. You remember where you were when you were watching it, or you were rooting so hard for a certain result. I guess the Miracle on Ice would be one that most people, you were.
I was young.
You were too young to remember that one. But
the Carrie Strug when.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Not needing her, but at the time we thought that they needed her desperately, and she was literally on one leg and sticks the landing like a freaking champion, and you can see the pain on her face, and she just has one leg going up and down like the Carrie Strug and DeBella Caroli, the whole thing. Yeah, the gymnastics team ended up being a disaster after that.
There's always controversy. There are always atrocities. There's already a controversy. Some equestrian guy was bounced from the Olympics already because he was guilty of some form of abuse. I didn't get into the story, but you're like, of course, the equestrian events are tainted. And then you have to be careful. Now, there's going to be a lot of action, and people are going to be betting this. And that's why also I felt somewhat of a moral obligation to go ahead and do an Olympic betting guide and Olympics preview over the next couple of days to at least touch on it, because the games now, isn't it weird? Don't they get underway today, some of the events, but the opening ceremonies aren't until Friday? Go figure that one out.
Yeah.
So they'll have that. And I think LeBron's going to be one of the American flag bearers, which is kind of cool. All right, but if you're betting the games, tread carefully. I mean, really do your research, people, and then you have to trust the system, which isn't easy to do. But if you wanted to go to a trusted source for your wagering, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything on online sports betting fronts. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from, Lubie, the Olympics,
yes,
the baseball that's getting red hot right now, to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. So you can double down on things, press your bets, whatever you want to do. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino. You can play poker, you can play blackjack, you can enjoy over 150 slot games available to you. Head to the website today to get in on all the action. Use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. That's a nice offering to get you started. Bet online. The game starts here. And I was thinking about Olympic moments. I have a few. I'll never forget this. For some reason, I remember then. This goes all the way back to 1960, Lubie. 1960, and then again in 1964. There was a Ethiopian marathon runner, and everybody thought that the marathon was an event that was originated on another planet. Nobody could even conceive of running 26 miles, 385 yards through dust and desert and mountains and all of this different shit. And we didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but this Ethiopian runner named Baby Bakila, who I think checked out a couple of years ago. I remember touching on this when he passed away. And he ran barefoot. 26 miles, 385 yards. And I remember him entering the stadium, and there was like nobody in sight. This guy slaughtered, annihilated the field. And, you're asking yourself, could I ever do this, Lubie? Would you ever consider it? And that was when nobody, I mean, if you mentioned a marathon to somebody, they had no idea what you were talking about. If it was today, they would have thought it was a gas station. But all of a sudden, I mean, how did this evolve into a craze where rarely do you talk to anybody that doesn't have somebody in their family? Oh, yeah, Stu, he's running the marathon today. I don't know, Libby, have you ever been inclined to want to run a marathon? But I remember thinking that this is impossible. And this was the guy who was the poster child for it, because he blew away the field, 2 straight gold medals. And I'll never forget that. Bruce Jenner winning the decathlon. He was running around the track there in the 1,500 meters, the final event. He didn't even need to win the thing to come out on top. All he had to do was survive this event. And that was great. Now, who would have thought, Luby, I mean, could you have ever come up with that one? If you went to the future book after Bruce Jenner was running around the track there with the American flag and the signature of his victory in the decathlon, one of the coveted events, and signifying maybe would you have to say that a decathlon winner is the world's most well-rounded athlete?
Yeah.
Is that true? I mean, do you have to be able to shoot a basketball? Should they not have 3-point shooting as part of it? Larry Bird might have won the decathlon if that was the case. But what kind of odds would you have gotten that like 40, 50 years later he would be a woman and it would be Caitlyn Jenner? You would definitely have to have broken the degenerate bank if you came up with that one. Of course, we loved and we got to know Howard Davis, who was part of that '76 Olympic boxing team
Yep.
that was so legendary with Sugar Ray Leonard, Leo Randolph, the Spinks brothers, Big John Tate. Many of whom went on to win world championships. In fact, Howard, unfortunately, as great of a guy as he was and distinguished a boxer, both as an amateur and a pro, is the answer to a trivia question, which is of the following, and you could name off all of the others that did go on to do it, who did not win a professional championship after being on that '76 team. And unfortunately, he passed away. Well, one of the weirdest things we've ever seen, right, where he somehow had lung cancer, even though he never smoked or did a drug in his life.
No, he was healthy, didn't really drink, didn't do anything. Take great care of himself. He got freaking lung cancer. It was really sad. What a really good dude.
Yeah, really good guy. So that'll always stand out for me, the '76 boxing team. And Greg Louganis, I was a big Greg Louganis fan. Everybody wanted to have a build like Greg Louganis. All guys did. And then, tremendous athleticism that he had. And I got to know him a little bit later on after his Olympic glory. And his coach, Ron O'Brien, was here in Fort Lauderdale at the Fort Lauderdale Hall of Fame swimming club. And, of course, was a legendary diving coach. So I remember that. But I don't know, Libby, what stands out to you? Anything? Usain Bolt? I mean, what would be the Gen X version of Olympic glory?
I mean, Phelps, Bolt, the fact that they were at the same time and were competing to be the best Olympian possibly ever in two very different worlds. And swimming, Phelps could do up to like 6, 7, 8 events.
Yeah.
And Bolt found a way to do like 3 or 4 events, which was rare, actually.
I think Bolt was in the marathon
He was able to
as well a bit.
And slow distance, and I'm sorry, long and short distance stuff is very rare, and he became great at all of it. It was just, that was fantastic. I mean, that was more recent. I just think of my childhood and shrug. I think of some of the winter stuff with Bonnie Blair and Dan Jansen. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
What was it? The commercials where they had what was it? Dave or Dan? I don't remember what that was, when they had the one guy that was the runner and then the other guy, and they would have those commercials, and then neither did anything in the Olympics.
Were they like the Johnsons? Was that it?
Johnson, maybe Dave Johnson.
Yeah.
I remember that being a big like Nike campaign.
Yeah, they both flamed out. You're right.
They
Well, what I'm looking at here is a full board of odds for men's and women's basketball, which, and I mentioned this, and of course, we encourage you to go ahead and take all of your action with Bet Online. But
yes,
that being said, proceed with a certain amount of caution, because the Olympics are wrought with just absolute criminal activity. I don't even know if you could call it cheating. It's outright criminal activity. Now, for years, one of the laments of the United States Olympic followers and fans, what was that? Well, the Russians are pros, the Germans are pros, and we just have a bunch of guys that come together, and we would lose in basketball or whatever. And then came the '72 game. That was one of the classics, one of my favorite Olympic events. The '72 game between the USSR, as it was known at the time, and the USA, where they gave the ball back to the Russians like 6 times at the end of the game. For no reason. I mean, it's just, wait a minute. All of a sudden, a whistle blows, and the Russians are taking the ball out of bounds again with like 3 7'5" guys under the basket. They finally lobbed one in there, and these poor scrubs that were competing, from various universities trying to go up against these monsters. Ended up finally succumbing, and the USA lost, of course. And we started thinking, why don't we bring in some pros?
Pretty much.
Started to, alleviate some of the rigidity of the amateur status. All of a sudden, Magic Johnson, what was of amateur status? The French judge, of course, that was Salt Lake City, which was wrought with corruption, was it not? Juan Antonio Samaranch, a lasting image coming out of the meetings. What was that, Lou?
Supposedly, Salt Lake's getting the 2034 Olympics. Did you see this?
Oh, did they get it again? And maybe that was part of the original deal, man.
I was like, wasn't it a disaster?
Samaranch was the head of the International Olympic Committee and was the guy that was accepting the bribes and the bids.
That's great.
I mean, he drove up to the meeting in Salt Lake City in like a Yugo or some car that's no longer in existence. And then I remember him being ushered out into like one of the most expensive, rare Rolls Royces that was ever, available for sale. And yeah, and of course, it was a disaster. And that was where you had the French judge, who I didn't want to have her go unnamed here and unrecognized for being part of Olympic history.
Yeah.
Marie Renee or Rain Lagunier.
Oh, the French, the figure skating.
Figure skating, yeah, where
Great.
the Russian skater was like bleeding from every pore because he had fallen flat on his face on the ice and somehow got like the highest fucking score. And it was only from the one judge, but it was enough to put him over the top. And that was it. And you could see still the attaché full of cash underneath her chair. She didn't even bother to pick it up. That was incredible. I mean, and that's Olympic lore. Of course, the Nancy Kerrigan, Tonya Harding thing, and I'll never forget the look on Leslie Visser, the famed sportscaster's face, when we were at her wedding to a gentleman that we know as the Duke. And Nancy Kerrigan was one of the people in attendance. And she comes over to my table, Leslie Visser, and says, well, it was a friend of mine and I who might have been inclined to do this and have a lack of formal etiquette. She said, whichever one of you goes up to her and says, why me? Is never going to be spoken to again. that wasn't actually in the games, right? I mean, the drama transpired later on because I guess what? Both Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan were in the games. Wasn't that the way where you got like that cold look from Nancy Kerrigan when Harding is doing little pirouettes out there on the ice, just in her face going, I can't believe you made it here, Nancy. I can't believe it. And then, of course, the ultimate travesty of all time was the Roy Jones Jr. loss. As he lost the gold medal in the Olympics. And you know how these stories go. They show you the guy working so hard. And he's like chasing rabbits in Pensacola to get speed in the gym, and he's getting his face pounded in. Then he finally gets to the point where he's going to win a gold medal, make a lot of money, which he did anyway.
Yeah.
Although some of that, I think, went up in smoke when he put out his record album, Y'all Must Have Forgot.
His rap was not great.
It was a rap album, yeah. I don't think it was a big seller, really.
No,
is he the only rapper that didn't make any money?
No, I mean, there's
Roy Jones Jr.? Man, did he get fucked on that decision. Probably the worst. I mean, you could have your Adelaide Birds and, all of the, atrocious scoring that we've seen from the Vegas boxing judges, but I don't think there's ever been a worse decision in the history of boxing than the Korean guy getting the win. They literally, he was raising his hand as he was being carried out of the ring on a stretcher. Holy Melvina Lathan. What are we talking about here? You could not have given the fight to this guy. He got smoked in all 3 rounds, and a devastating blow for Roy Jones, who managed to recover very nicely. But anyway, okay, so we're touching on it. Be careful, people, when you're betting, because of all of these different things that sort of have permeated the games forever. Never mind the juice and drugs, and that's minor. The outright, flat-out, bought-off corruption.
Yep.
Definitely, could be a factor in your wagering. If you could get inside information on that, you'd be in pretty good shape. All right, holdouts, big story in the NFL, Lubie. Holdouts, that's it. CD Lamb. Do you get a vicarious and sadistic joy out of seeing the Dallas Cowboys in a situation where they might get fucked?
Yes.
I do. I don't know about the rest of the people out there.
Love it. I mean, I don't think Dak's worth all the money that they're paying him, and they're going to have to pay him. But I do love the idea that he sort of has to get paid it, so they're fucked either way. Either
fucked if you do, and fucked if you don't.
Either they don't pay him, and then he just holds out, so that's classic. Or they do pay him, and he's a guy that's barely a top 10 quarterback who hasn't won anything, and you're sort of stuck with him. Like, I think it's amazing either way. It makes me happy. And
CD Lamb, I mean, is getting paid, peasant money by comparison to some of the other wide receivers right now.
And the numbers he put up the last couple of years are utterly insane. Like, people don't think of him like that because, again, they don't win. But when you look at his numbers, they compare to Jamar Chase, they compare to Justin Jefferson, they compare to Tyreek Hill. I mean, his numbers are right up there with all the guys that are making lots and lots and lots of money.
Yeah. And then I guess the other team that most people around the country would like to see fucked with, especially with the comeback and the return of Aaron Rodgers, which will be laced with massive amounts of uncertainty until we see a couple of games. And maybe even after that, Hassan Reddick, a pass rusher that they acquired in the around April, I think they picked this guy up. And he's like, hey, I ain't playing for this. What are you talking about?
Well, that was already the thing, though, right? That was it. The Eagles have so much money into their defensive line. Someone had to go.
Yeah.
and he's actually an old dude, so they stayed with the younger guys. He's gone, but that was a big deal. Is he wanted more money? So like, it's funny. He goes to the Jets and is doing the same thing he would have done in Philly.
There you go. Not in training camp. Those are the big stories so far in training camp. Guys that aren't there. And Paul Skenes, man, went into the ninth inning yesterday. I saw somebody put up a handicapping piece of advice where they were saying, hey, take the over on strikeouts. Paul Skenes, 8 and a hook. Now you're thinking, is he going to strike out 9 guys in the span of 6 or 7 innings? So he goes all the way into the ninth inning of this game. It takes his first loss.
No,
The Cardinals beat the Pirates 2-1. But going all the way to the ninth inning, he still only struck out 8. So the underplayers were dancing in the streets on that. And once again, you had a very well thought out, mathematically logical piece of advice from a betting service, and they buried you. Just like it seems like they always do. And I did want to pay tribute to the great musician who passed away yesterday, John Mayall. And will never forget, I saw John Mayall in a concert when I was a freshman at Syracuse. Didn't know that much about him. But he had put out an album that was revolutionary called The Turning Point. I'm coming back from the concert with my friend. We're hitchhiking back to the campus. And who picks us up? John Mayall and his band, which included John Mark, Johnny Almond, and a guy named Stephen Thompson. And they sort of really revolutionized the perception that a lot of people had about blues music, which was part of his life. So he died at 90, Lubie.
Oh,
and then also passing away, a boxer who would not be necessarily a household name around the country at this point in time, named Richie Sandoval, who was a WBA bantamweight champion. I got to know him because I covered a lot of fights that his brother, the fabled Alberto Superfly Sandoval, were involved in, and or was involved in. And Richie became actually the better of the two, more accomplished as a pro because he won a world title and passed away, unfortunately, at a very young age of 63 the other day. So got to know him a little bit, and a couple of guys that sort of touched me, very brief brush with that checked out as seems like we're always going to the obituary list these days on the celebrity and the sporting scene. All right, Lubie, have a great day. Always a pleasure being with you. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in. Tread with caution if you're going to be betting on the Olympics because we don't know what is and what isn't on the level. And we'll see you next time on the Morning Briefing.